Hey, baby. It's time for night talks. I'm your host, Ari. We're snuggling in. Oh, here we go. How are you tonight? Oh, how snuggled in. What a day it's been. I was going to talk about something, and then I forgot about what I was going to talk about. Isn't that how it goes? So one thing that's going on right now is Abdul Al-Saeed is getting pummeled for hating Mackinac Island. And I've only ever been once, and I had a friend who was a historical reenactor, because he has a history degree, and so he was a historical reenactor that lived up in Mackinac. And it seemed like it was something that was really special that he was doing up there. And my sister worked for a few days up in Mackinac, but it didn't seem like they treated her very well up there, so it didn't last. But she said she had a really hard time living up there, and then it just ended up not working out. Because my sister was trying to do seasonal work, and it just didn't work out very well. Like, they just kind of mistreated her, and it just wasn't a good situation all around. So it seems like they don't treat their seasonal employees very well, or that it's just like not a very good situation as far as like work ethic and like the amount of money that you make up there as a seasonal employee. But like, I think it's okay if you're like young and you don't have a lot of expectation. But like, as you get older, it's just not a very good situation to be working in. I've worked a lot of seasonal jobs. My sister was like, yeah, seasonal work was good when I was young, but it gets harder the older you get. And that's fair. That's fair. But she did some seasonal work down in Texas, but she had a more adult job down there. So I guess it just depends on the nature of the seasonal work that she's doing. It was more of a permanent position, but I don't know. I did seasonal work as a more permanent thing too, because I worked as a print clerk at Grand Canyon, and then I worked as a server, but I did it for a long-term thing. Like, I didn't do it for just like a couple months. I did it for like a year and a half. So it's like I wouldn't, just do it for a few months and then leave. I would, stay for longer periods of time at seasonal positions. Just because, like, I don't really like moving around so fast at these seasonal jobs. Just because, like, even in the off season, you can make quite a bit of money. Plus, I don't like moving around a lot. So I was checking in with Girl World recently, then there was a lot of stuff that was going on. It looks like Amber might be quitting her health journey and is fully into phase 2 of her cycle. And I don't know what's going on with Foodie Beauty. She's just being kind of ridiculous. Glitter and Lasers has been fully out of the game for a while. She kind of quit the internet, which, fair. Maybe she's pulling a Nikocado avocado and just like gonna come back and she's have lost the weight or something. That because she's like working as a spokesperson for like she's doing like a GLP-1 sponsorship, and so she's losing the weight and she's going to come back and be like a GLP-1 sponsor. And so like she's like wiping her channel clean and like going to start fresh when she comes back as like, you know, like a case of I lost the weight, or that, I don't know. I think that something's going on with all of that, but I have my conspiracies, but because I think if she was done with the internet, she would have deleted her channel, but I don't think she's done with the internet personally. I think that she's going to do a rebrand, but I think she's kind of like falling off the public, recognition, and that she's going to come back as someone completely different in like maybe a year or two. And so people like won't recognize her, but like she'll kind of have like enough time that she'll be able to like rebrand herself. And so like the awareness of her will like fall off. So when she comes back, she'll be like, oh, look at, you know, isn't that interesting? She's come back and she's a little bit different. Because like all the chatter about her stopped or whatever. I noticed that Alexandra Rodriguez, in the nesting of her children, has tried to rebrand herself as a solo parent, like a single parent, even though she's in a relationship and she's married. Like she talks about like solo parenting, and she did like a photo shoot where she was like marketing herself as like a single parent. Like she's definitely trying to market to like single mothers, and like that she is like doing this by herself, even though she is fully in a committed relationship, which is the weirdest thing. But I don't know. But so I hope I'm not being too loud. I should probably be more quiet. I'm probably waking people up. I just keep thinking like, Like, what's my purpose for posting online? Like people tend to like follow people online because their lives are like train wrecks. Like people love a bit of drama and like a bit of like failure, but like if you are any sort of like normal at all, or like that, if you're like any sort of like even keel, or like you have to be like screwed up for people to follow you. Like to be like a big YouTube celebrity, you have to be like not a good person. Like it's very rare to be like big on YouTube or like big on TikTok and to be like a genuinely good person. Like I can think of only like maybe like a handful of people who are genuinely good people who are famous. And even then, I think that like the genuinely good people that are famous are like plants. Like it's all like a show. Like Jordan the Stallion, like I think of him as like a good person, but like also I think he might be a plant. Like he might have like paid for subscribers, or like he paid money to get famous. Cause like how is it that he knows like all these celebrities and like that, you know, he got these like brand deals and like he, because it just seems so like convenient, you know, like I don't know, because he like, but like I want to believe that like genuinely like certain good people like do become famous, but like most of the time it's like really screwed up people become famous. And that's like really disheartening because it's like, I don't know. Or like really like screwed up people become like, and maybe that's because like everybody in the whole world is like screwed up in some way and like fallible in some way. And so like, and it's just like, you know, you shouldn't worship rich people or you shouldn't worship celebrities because they're just like normal people who have been elevated to some like high esteem place. And so they're not paragons of society. They're just regular people who have been like given a position of prestige and power who like don't necessarily deserve it any more than anyone else. It's just that they're regular people who have gotten like a status that the rest of us they've gained some like extra privilege or morality, perceived morality that like they don't have. Like they're not any better than anyone else. We just think that they're better because they have this position of power. And like they may even be worse because they're in that position of power because it gives them a certain advantage over other people, and they use that to do maybe awful things because they think they can get away with it. Like that's why you get like people who are like, you know, Epstein's and like Bill Cosby's and like people who are like not good people, or Diddy's, you know, people who are just like not good people doing bad things, or like trumps, like people who are just like not good people, but like they're not the exception to the rule, they are the rule. People who like use their power and advantage to do like not good things and to abuse their power, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. That has been the rule since before time. And like this is like something that we've known, that power corrupts absolutely. But like it's like we just like as a society we've forgotten this rule, and we like celebrity worship and all of these things when we know that power corrupts. And we just think like the American dream, like, well, it won't happen to me, or it doesn't happen to the people that I know, or like it would never happen to the celebrity that I worship. And it's like, what part of power corrupts absolutely do you not understand? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Even your most favorite celebrity is corrupt because they have power. Even if it's something that you may not think, they are corrupt in some kind of way. They are, because everybody has the capacity to be a bad person. And they use that power to their advantage to manipulate and use it to their advantage in some kind of way. However PR they try to spin on themselves, however good of a person they are, if they are in a position of power, they are inherently a bad person. Even the most good of people that, society says, oh, they're such a sweetheart, they're such a good person. Even the most like honest of good people, even the Betty Whites of people, have probably done really terrible things that we probably don't know about. They have probably done some pretty horrible things that we probably don't know about and haven't found out about. And that's the truth. And you think, oh no, not my Betty White. Oh no. There's probably some horrible scandal in her past that like you probably don't want to know about because it would make her look like a really bad person. Or there's something like in David Lynch's past. Oh, I know what David Lynch's stuff is. I've learned about David Lynch's horrible stuff that he did, and I'm like, it made me not like him that much more. And like when I found out what it was about David Lynch that it made me not like him. And I realized when I found out what it was about David Lynch, I was like, okay. But I don't want to ruin David Lynch for you. If you like David Lynch, because like, he's not an entirely bad guy, but he's not an entirely good guy either. But like, when you get to the bottom of the glacier that is David Lynch, and you find out the thing, because like bro dudes will be like, no, David Lynch is fine. David Lynch is a great guy. And it's like, when you get to the bottom of the glacier that is David Lynch, you'll know. You'll know. As a woman, you'll know. It'll be right there, smacking your face, and you'll be like, yep. Yep. If you watch all of his movies, the movies will make sense, and like why the bro dudes like his movies, and like why he is the way he is, and why he was an apologist for Roman Polanski, and yep, okay. I mean, like why he has women who like cape for him and stuff. Yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, like, yeah, he's just a nice, good old homeboy from, he's got a, like, nice little Midwest, you know, apple pie personality. Not David Lynch. He's a good guy. Everyone's a villain. Everyone's a villain, even David Lynch. And I say this as a David Lynch fan. Even David Lynch is a villain. Even the most honest to good home, down home person is a bad person. And you may not want to believe it. You may not want to believe it. But even your most favorite is problematic in some way. And there's just some things you have to come to accept about people, that there are things that are problematic about even your most favorite celebrity. And I had to come to terms with my favorite celebrity, that there are things about David Lynch that were not great. I don't know. But I think about that a lot. Like, yeah. Do you think dreams are just alternate realities? Or like, I was talking about dreams with my mom, and so my mom says that she dreams that she's like other people in her sleep. Sometimes she's men, or like women, or like my sister Jessica told me that she dreams in black and white, that she doesn't dream in color. I dream in color, but I dream from like a third person perspective. Or like sometimes I dream in first person perspective, but like sometimes I'm like not acknowledged. Like I'm kind of like a ghost that kind of like floats around, or like that I like will be like watching a scene in front of me, but like I'm just watching everything happen, and like nobody's acknowledging me at all. I'm just kind of there, but like nobody is acknowledging my presence. It's kind of like a movie, but like I exist, but like nobody's like paying any attention to me. Like, I just am there, part of the scene. But, like, nobody's actively acknowledging me at all. I'm just kind of, like, walking from, like, room to room. Or, like, place to place. Does that make sense? Like, my presence has no bearing on what's happening in front of me. I'm just watching all this stuff happen in front of me. I'm kind of just like a passive observer of reality in my dreams, or passive observer of surreality. Do you ever have phrases that get repeated through your mind that are like poetic? That like dictate your life in some way? They're like things that like are so part deeply of your core that they like are like themes of parts of your existence. Like when I was a teenager, I used to repeat all the time, a sailor on a ship without a compass. A sailor on a ship without a compass. A sailor on a ship without a compass. I used to repeat that over and over again. And I was like, is that what I'm experiencing right now? That I feel like a sailor on a ship without a compass? And then when I was in my 20s, I would repeat, I dream in Kodachrome green. I dream in Kodachrome green. I would just repeat it over and over again. That I just had these like poetic phrases that would just like repeat over and over in my mind. And I don't know why, but I stopped repeating. I haven't had a phrase like that repeat in my mind like that in a while. But like sometimes I just like will be writing and like a phrase will come over me. And I'll be like, God is so good. But I write so often now that like I'll be like thinking of a phrase or like an idea and like I'll kind of latch onto it. And it's like walking a tightrope, you know, like I'll be walking through phrases and stuff. But I get that way with language sometimes that I'm like pimpidle pumpiddle, pimpiddle pumpiddle. Oh, that's a phrase that I'm going to repeat for a while. Pimpiddle pumpiddle. Pimpiddle, pimple pumpiddle. Pimple pumpiddle. Pimple pumpiddle. That's something that I feel like I could write a poem about. Pimple pumpiddle. Pomp and circumstance. Pimpiddle pumpiddle. Pomp and circumstance. Pimpiddle pumpiddle. Pomp and circumstance. Pimpiddle pumpiddle. Pomp and circumstance. But it starts like that, where you're just like, you know, you say a word and then it becomes like a poem. In the pimp and pumpiddle. In the pimp and pomp. In the pimp and pumpiddle. Pomp it. In the pimp and pomp. Pomp and circumstance. In the pimp and pomp. Primp and prim and proper, pimp and pompadour, pomp and circumstance. I should be writing this down. That sounds good. I'll watch it back. Pimp and pompadour. Oh, that's so good. But that's like things like repeat in my brain. I just like latch onto them. They're just like things like that. Is that weird? Is that just part of the creative mind? Like latching onto things that are just like there. You know, I thought of it like this, that like, it's like you have this ether of like ideas, like circling around you in this cloud above your head in the universe. And it's like hanging above you in the air, all these ideas and thoughts and things. And like you just reach up and you grab it and you pull it down. You examine it and you make it real. And you reach up and you pull it and you grab it, you make it real. And like you're constantly like reaching up into the universe and like pulling it down, and you're like, what if fairies were creative beings? Like actual fairies, you know, like the fairies from like the fairies that, you know, like the fairies that they photographed that were like, you know, that turned out to be fake. The fairies that they photographed in that like 1920s, like the fairies of that, like, you know, the conspiracy theory fairies that like those two girls filmed back in the day. What if those fairies were real and like we had like fairies, those kind of fairies that like lived among us? Like what if those were real? Man, wouldn't that be interesting? Just like fairies living among us like that. Like what would society be like if they were real and they were creative beings and they could grant wishes like that? Like what if Tinkerbell were real? What if we lived in a society where Tinkerbell was a creative being and lived among us? That means if fairies were real, that means that, because, you know, we're talking about like Peter Pan and stuff, that means that flying would be real too, wouldn't it? If fairies were real, then flying would be real. Would that not be true? And that means that there would be a subset of people who could fly all around the world, and that there would be air traffic, local air traffic from point A to point B, like low-level air traffic of people flying to their destinations, like using that flying, like fairies giving you dust to fly as a way of like, it would be like the same as like using a scooter or something, but it'd be like having fairies giving you like magic dust to like fly. There would be like a service for that. There would be like a market for that. But would it be rude to ask for fairy dust? What would be the market for that? Would you pay? Obviously, you'd pay them a wage for it, or you would have to give them something in return for fairy dust in order to fly. Like, you couldn't just, like, ask for it unless you were friends with the fairy. Like, you had to be cool with the fairies. You know who would be flying is probably black people. Black people would be flying the most. Because black people would definitely be cool with the fairies. Because you know they know boundaries better than white people. You know that white people would have to, like, exploit fairies, and, like, there would be, like, the only white people who would be able to fly are people who could, like, afford it and, like, pay a lot of money to, like, get fairy dust, but they probably wouldn't be able to fly as long or as far because, like, it was, like, exploited labor fairy dust. So, like, you know what I mean? It would be, like, not as good as, like, naturally homegrown fairy dust or, like, freely given fairy dust. So it wouldn't be, like, as potent as, like, a fairy who gave their fairy dust as, like, a fairy who, like, gave it to somebody with their own free will and, like, didn't have to, like, produce fairy dust like, you know, like a cow giving milk or something, you know, like under slave labor. Like where they're having to constantly produce fairy dust for exploitative means. Where they're constantly having to produce fairy dust for, like, capitalist consumer means. I would feel bad for those fairies. Like, you know, there would be, like, vegans that would be, like, freeing the fairies from, like, mean, like, we need to free the fairies. Like, you can't exploit the fairies like this. And there would be people who'd be, like, Andrew Tate people who'd be like, no, it's my right to exploit fairies as much as possible. And they'd be, like, mistreating the fairies and, like, beating up the fairies and, like, slapping the fairies around and, like squeezing the fairies, like, as for as much fairy dust as they could get out of them and just, like, crushing the fairies to, like, grind their bread or something. And those poor little fairies are, like, crying and, like, no, don't do this to me. I have a will to live. I have children. You know, there would be some, like, awful exploitative thing about the fairies. And, like, they would just, like, some awful, like, manosphere guy would be like, I could do whatever I want to the fairies. It's my free will to do whatever I want to the fairies. And, like, crush them in his hand and, like, break or, like, rip their wings off, like, one by one and, like, crush them and, like, do awful things with them. And then there'd be, like, some trad wife who's like, let's make fairy bread or something, and, like, makes, like, a whole recipe out of, like, fairy dust and, like, uses, like does some, like, problematic recipe that involves, like, or, like, some like, meat recipe that involves, like, killing a fairy and, like, using its organs or something. They're like, it's a delicacy. Doesn't it taste delicious? And it's like, you know, like, it doesn't even, like, give you more fairy dust doing that. It's just, like, really gross and, like, problematic to eat a fairy like that. Like, it's just mean and mean-spirited. And it's like, but someone would be doing that where they would be eating fairies and cannibalistic. And they'd be like, well, I can do whatever I want because they're not people. You know that someone would be eating fairies. Because they're awful. They're awful because there are so many awful people out there. They'd be like, it's my free will to eat fairies. And then someone would have to, they would have to like pass laws that you can't eat fairies because it's like not good quality meat. But then there would be like some black market where you could get meat that's like fairy meat or something. And there would be like a market for like, there would be like people who like were like, "Oh, that's a delicacy or something," and like, "Ugh, gross. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You're like the worst kind of person." These are ideas that I'm plucking from the universe. Like, this is this is what is wrong with people. This is what's wrong with people. Like, just leave fairies alone. Idea plucked from the universe. Okay. What if we had a tablet, but it was just one book? One book that was like forever, just one tablet. Like a digital tablet, but it was one book. And it couldn't be changed or updated. Just one tablet for one book. And it didn't have a whole lot of memory on it. It didn't you couldn't put anything else on it. It was just you just opened the book and it was one book, but it was digital. But it was like a thin sheet of like tablet paper, like digital paper. But it was one tablet. You couldn't download the book. It was already digital, but it was one digital book. But it was, so it read digitally, but you couldn't download anything. It was like a physical copy of a book. So, but you could swipe on it like a digital copy of a book. It didn't require anything to download. It just existed as a digital book. And it charged from the sun. So it was like physical media, but it was like a digital physical media. Does that make sense? So it's like the interplay of like having a digital copy, but like having a physical digital copy. So they were just like they were little books, but they were like you could slide them into like your book. So you had like a little book, but you slid it into your book and you could just like swipe on it. But then you just like took it out and you slipped another book in and you could just like move your books out. But like it was just that you interchanged your book and it was just like, yeah. But like it wasn't like a Kindle that because the book, it had like a book cover and everything. Like it had its own book cover. So you still got the physical media of like having a book cover or something like fancy like that, or having something that you could have physically. So like you got all of the like pomp and circumstance of having a book, but none of the like, but like the lightness of a digital book. So like it came in a physical book, like it came in a physical book, and you took it out and put it in like a little carrying case that was like lightweight. So like this would have like maybe like the printed edges, or like the gilded edges, or like the golden edges, or like like or like special editions or something like that. But like then you would get like just a digital cop. There was like a digital copy, but it was like, yeah. Oh, I should probably go. This is getting long. I don't know. Tell me if any of this like interesting at all. Um, I gotta go. I'm just talking bullshit now. Anyway, I hope you have a good night. Thanks for listening to me talk on Night Talks. All right, have a good night. Bye.